Welcome to The New Health. I'm your host, Jessica Preston, where we speak with thought leaders in healthcare who are revolutionizing the healthcare industry and making a new healthcare model that is sustainable and healthy for you. Today we have back with us James Maskell. Welcome back, James.
Great to be here with you, Jessica. Thanks for having me.
Happy to have you, always. Please keep coming back. So today I'd love to talk about this old healthcare model about we go into the doctor, we say what's wrong with us, the doctor gives a prescription, and then we go home from there, and how that is the older method, why that isn't working anymore, what's the new method?
Yeah, well, as I've mentioned before, I think that method worked very well for acute disease, but for lifestyle-driven chronic disease, it's clearly not working. And there was the thing that really crystallized this for me was a 2015 in Nature, which is one of the biggest medical journals, called In Precision Medicine. And what it showed is that when you actually look at the real statistics, a lot of what you think you're seeing in the world is actually just pharmaceutical marketing, because in America that's allowed on TV and it's just so pervasive you don't even think about it. But if you look at a statistic called number needed to treat, NNT, what that is essentially saying is for every person that takes a drug, for every person that drug works for, how many other people take that drug and it doesn't work for them? And if you look at this graphic, you'll see that these are the top 10 grossing drugs in America. So the top $10 that are spent on drugs. So you can see Abilify, Nexium, Humira, Crestor, drugs that if you're watching this, you're probably familiar with. For every one person that it works for, it doesn't work for between 3 and 24 people. So what this is basically showing you is that for most people, like, the drugs aren't working most of the time. So if you've ever been to the doctor and they've given you a drug, it hasn't worked, that's normal. That's what this system does. The only reason why you're doing drugs first is because it's advertised on TV and because doctors' education is paid for by pharmaceutical companies. I mean, that's it. There's no reason why the first line of therapy should be medication. Really no reason at all. It's just that that's the system that we have. And part of the reason why we need community is because it takes community to really break out of that paradigm and to be part of it. And so this is, that really crystallized for me that I guess the other question is, well, what would happen if we did the community cure as the first line therapy? And even doctors here in Houston have been, working on that and seeing, and also doctors across the country starting to see, if I put lifestyle first and I put lifestyle in groups first, you see that in those sort of situations, 60, 70, 80% of people have a dramatic improvement in their health in a pretty short period of time. And so from a health economist point of view, and also from a human point of view, and also from a father point of view, and also from just someone who cares about our common humanity and unnecessary suffering, it's extremely reasonable to me that the first thing that we should all be doing is aggressively going after the lifestyle factors that have made us sick, and it's the quickest and most obvious and most cost-effective and most life-affirming way back.
I think this is great, and I think that for a lot of us that were trained in medicine, for example, when it comes to high cholesterol, the first thing we should do is actually change your diet and do that for a number of months before we prescribe a medicine, and that seems to have gotten lost somewhere in the system.
It's got lost, yeah, and it's not easy, right? It's easier to take the pill, right? But it's actually a lot more effective to do the lifestyle first. And part of the reason why I wrote in the community cure is because it's a lot easier when you do it in a group. And it's a lot easier when you do it with someone else. My mother-in-law, she was part of a group called Overeaters Anonymous. And really all you do in that group is you check in with essentially like a sponsor every morning to say, or at the end of every day, say what you ate that day. It's pretty simple, right? So it could be like a 1-minute phone call. And my mother in that process lost over 100 pounds. Wow. And it was really because the idea of having to speak to someone that she cared about, that she built trust with, and having to say, I lost it. I went to the McDonald's drive-thru and I had 6 McFlurries. Like she was so motivated to not have to do that, whether that be whatever emotions were motivating that, and that was led to a dramatic effect. So that's just one simple example of someone who's not even that connected as that sponsor. And the valuable thing is that that's valuable for her, but it's also valuable for that other person, for the other sponsor. So I think that's really really interesting.
I think that's great. It's that accountability partner. So we have that for exercise, we can have that for nutrition groups. I'm in a group where we're saying, okay, we're all going to do a certain nutrition plan starting on this day.
Yeah.
We're actually all going to get CGMs at this point, the continuous glucose monitors, to just see where things are so we can learn more about what's more healthful for us. And we have a little group like that. So the other part I think it's really important to know and remember is, even when we're in these groups and we can still have those feelings where we might want these 6 McFlurries, and that feeling might not go away, and it's okay to accept that we might not feel great in that space, but when we have someone who accepts us and we're an accountability partner in that way, that is truly accepting who we are, it allows us to be more peaceful and relaxed and calm. And
All healthy things, yeah. I couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, it's really healthy and valuable, and it's really about finding that person. I think one of the things that comes up when I talk about group and sharing medical information with other people are very concerned about privacy, right? That's something that comes up a lot. As soon as I mention the idea of a group medical visit where groups of people with the same condition meet together and work out their disease together, that's the first thing that certainly doctors think about, right? Because they're responsible for the privacy of their patient's information,
right.
And then also that it's just been hardwired into us, almost actually hardwired into us, similar to do pharmaceuticals, right? Privacy and and don't talk about your medical condition and so forth. And I feel we lose so much once you've experienced the ability to speak to someone else, to hear that things are hard for them too, and hear some of the ways that they've overcome some of the similar challenges. It's really transformational, and I wish that for you. I wish that you could experience what it's like to have someone who is not just in sympathy with you, life is hard, but in empathy for you, that sees that you are capable and that you are capable of overcoming this and that we can overcome it together. That is such a joy. And I would say that when I've been in those rooms and when I've experienced that, you could almost feel a huge exhale from people who have had all of this fear and anxiety and pain and grief and sadness stored up in them, and have had no place to let that out. And then they hear someone say, hey, my life has been like this too, and I've dealt with this and this is how I come with it. And it's almost sort of a relaxation, wow, I'm not alone in this struggle. And if you've never experienced that, I would highly recommend finding a way to do that. And it will take, finding something and creating some safety and finding a situation that deserves, that sort of trust. But the feeling of that is really powerful.
And watching that, as I can say from the provider standpoint, watching patients in community, even the levity of, we have a nutrition group in one of ours where it's their communication with each other, and it's, how are you doing this week? I'm starving. And everybody laughs, right? I mean, it's I'm starving. We're oh. So as the clinician in that space, it's, I need to make sure you're eating appropriately and getting enough so you're feeling full and everything. But the levity there was great between the community of patients. So it's a beautiful experience, I think, on both sides.
Yeah, it's one thing to have the internal motivation and ability and trigger to make the initial change, right? That's how change happens. But then to sustain that change over time and to actually have that accountability over time and support over time. It's funny you mentioned accountability partner in one of the businesses that I've been pioneering for the last few years, where we've been doing this group medicine together. At the beginning I was okay, we'll all have accountability partners and this will be great. And I just realized, like, people don't have a great relationship with accountability, you know? But we just actually changed the name to Progress Partner, and people loved it.
Oh,
so it was
that's
like,
nice.
it was such a funny like tweak where when we said, hey, you're all going to get introduced to your accountability partner, we could see in the data the percentage of people that would actually start a conversation inside the software with, you know, their accountability partner was, you know, at this level. And then we changed it to Progress Partner, and it was like an exponential shift up because everyone wants to progress, right? And if it's framed in that way, it's the same thing. It's the same process of people talking to each other about how they're doing, but the Progress Partner lingo seemed to open up for most people something where, like, you know, I don't want to voluntarily have accountability to some other person, but I do want to make progress in my health.
Yeah, no, that's wonderful. Words matter, semantics matter,
Yeah,
you know, the way what we choose, and
sure.
I love the Progress Partner. That's, I might take that.
Yeah, you should.
That's wonderful. Maybe we should be all taking that, take that at home, because even accountability to our partner at home, accountability to our spouse, accountability to our children, progress sounds so much better. I like that in all aspects.
Yeah, who's your progress partner?
Yeah.
And you know, I think that could be a great gift for everyone. If you're at home, think about, you know, who do you trust enough to be your progress partner, to go out to say to them, look, I want to make some progression in my health. Can you support me in the choices that I'm making? How can I support you? You know, one conversation like that with someone that you already trust could be the difference between having the support that you need for the rest of your life versus, you know, just being in a soup of toxic food, toxic air, toxic water, toxic relationships that are all, you know, driving you towards chronic disease. Something like that can be extremely freeing.
And it sounds like also it's a way to ask for help without being so vulnerable and asking for help. Hey, would you be my progress partner?
Yeah.
Is a way of asking for help without saying help me in a way that might make you not feel good about yourself, especially on the beginning of a journey.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah, so I think that sounds really, that's really impactful. So if we were to give one piece of advice to our listening audience, what would you give them on this day from this?
Yeah, I would say the first thing we all have to come to an understanding is that a lot of what we think about as culture around us is marketing. Right, and I know that can be hard to realize. I certainly found out about that. I remember the first time when I realized that, like, why do you give your wife a diamond ring, right? Why is that part of our culture? And it's marketing from the De Beers Diamond Company. And as soon as you realize that, you can take a step back and say, what else of this is marketing that I think is inherent to my culture, but is marketing? And so many things around health are marketing. And so my number one thing is that if you are dealing with a chronic symptom, something that's come up for a long time, you know, that there is no way out of that through medication. There is a way to manage that over time with some medications can do that, but there is no way out of that with medication. The only way back is to rebuild function towards, you know, to healthy function. And so, like, ultimately, my hope is that you can find a structure whereby you can rebuild function and maybe a progress partner is right for you.
Thank you so much for that. So, James, thank you again for being with us here today. Can you please let our audience know how they can find you?
Yeah, you can check out my website is jamesmaskell.com. So it has a list of all my different projects on there, my books, and some of the things that I'm up to. And then if you go to Mr. James Maskell on Instagram, that's where you can find what I'm up to in real time.
Thank you so much. So James will be back with us again next week, so you can hear more about his work and how he's changing the world with health and wellness. Please stay tuned after these messages for our next guest.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Are you nearly maxed out on your credit cards? It doesn't matter if you're using your credit cards for fun or to survive. At the end of the month, your statements come in, and you can either pay them or you can't. If you can't, late fees and interest rates get tacked on. And now you're struggling just to make the minimum payment due. Do you feel trapped? Am I talking to you? Good, because I personally researched some companies that can help you. They may be able to reduce your credit card balances by 50% and stop the late fees. If you qualify, please call our special debt hotline number right now for a complimentary free 5-minute consultation. Deal with your credit card problem now before it gets much worse and put more money back in your pocket. Trust me, I've been there too. Call right now.
Call 855-993-2096 right now. That's 855-993-2096.
Welcome back to The New Health, and we have Adam Lane Smith with us today, the attachment specialist. Welcome back, Adam.
Thank you for having me back.
My pleasure always. And today I would love to talk a bit about, we've talked a lot about the avoidant attachment style. I would love to talk about the anxious attachment style.
And that's so important because it's almost as common as the avoidant attachment style. So just a little disclaimer out there. Anxious attachment does impact a lot more women than men, but there are men who do experience this as well. Usually we call them nice guys, nice guy syndrome. But for women, you're shy, you are quiet, you are nervous, you're withdrawn. It's really, really common for this to be an experience. So just disclaimer, if you're having these feelings, it's normal for you to blame yourself. It's probably not you. Most people are probably around you are having this experience. So please don't feel alienated during this episode. We're going to give you some good answers for making things better.
That's wonderful. That's great. So now, anxious, we talked about avoidant is more of the retreat or being all alone on their own. So
avoidant blames other people.
Okay.
And says other people are not to be trusted during times of stress. I'm okay, but other people will reject me, they'll turn on me, they will not operate properly. So I will pull back, I will build my wall, I will live in my castle, my mental fortress, and I will not allow anyone in, but I will speak to them over the wall kind of thing. It's almost grandiose. But that's avoidant attachment style. Anxious attachment style turns inward. Usually they do get some oxytocin bonding in childhood, and then it's pulled away. And then they get a little more, and then it's pulled away again. It could be daycare, and your providers consistently change, especially way too early. It could be feeling like she bonds with you, then rejects you. It could be people who have abuse, but it could also be people who their parents are simply absent, and they got some bonding, but it was taken away. They know what it's like to feel abandoned. And so they start to blame themselves. As a little 1-year-old or a 6-month-old or 2-month-old, this was my fault. I did something, right? The baby's first origin of cause and effect is me. I did this. So they say, I made people abandon me. Something's wrong with me on the inside that I can't see, but everybody else does. And I can't let them see it or they'll abandon me and I will die. And it welds abandonment and death together in your brain because as a baby, if you get abandoned, you do die. So abandonment and death go locked together, and being seen gets locked in with that as well. So they put up a cardboard cutout of I will always be perfect. Nothing is ever wrong with me. I have no needs. I will always please other people. They will keep me and they won't throw me away, and that way I can survive. And this is anxious attachment style. It is almost like being a doormat. But then you have secret needs. You get into a relationship, you get married. You are the perfect, amazing spouse, and you're not a bad person, but you have these secret needs deep down that if I'm going to do 10 nice things for you, you'll do one nice thing for me, you'll read my mind, I won't have to say it, it'll be okay, you won't abandon me, you won't judge me, and we'll get it going. And then when people don't meet their needs, they blame themselves, they blame themselves, they blame themselves. Where I see the biggest problem is when they get into a romantic relationship and they get married, they have kids, they have babies, and now it's my babies are not getting proper bonding with you and it's your fault. Why aren't you caring for our children? That's where I see women usually turn the corner and become not aggressive, it's not the right term, but more assertive. They can only assert themselves on behalf of somebody else. They can only do that for their children. And I see that transformation that leads to actually what it seems about 98% of divorces that I've seen in my years as a licensed marriage and family therapist. Most of that work, it was done with those cases of anxious women who finally were advocating for themselves, but they had felt like a doormat all those years because they felt like they had to, or they would die.
Oh, wow. That's
terrible.
Wow, it is. That's terrible.
Yeah. And that's why I start off. If you're feeling that right now, if this is resonating, I want you to know that the odds are extremely low that every person with anxious attachment style is deeply unlovable. Most anxious people, they have what we used to call an inferiority complex of everyone is better than me. I am the lone exception. But I have 5 kids. I know you have kids. Mm-hmm. I've never looked at a baby and said, that baby really doesn't deserve love, does it? No, I don't think so. But that's where this attachment style begins. That's where your nervous system started getting out of whack. That's where you started feeling unlovable, or you would be abandoned. No one will ever care for you. It was when you were a little infant. That's where this started. So if you were not unlovable then, you probably have a number of things now you think you're unlovable because of. You violated your principles and your goals to make people happy, for example. Now you don't respect yourself. Now you think you're the scum of the earth. Everything is now biased proof that you're unlovable. But it doesn't have to be that way. And you're not unlovable. By the way, you're not at all.
So we've talked a lot about the neurochemistry of avoidant. Mm-hmm. Is it similar for anxious because they're still feeling like their nervous system is fairly unsafe?
You know what's fascinating with an anxiously attached person, they develop an extreme addictive behavior toward oxytocin, because oxytocin then releases GABA, which allows your nervous system to soothe and be calm. So when they get somebody to give them oxytocin and feel loved and cared for, all of a sudden they feel safe and like they're not going to die anymore. So they run from relationship to relationship, seeking one person at a time, one person in their life, to nurture them and give them that oxytocin. And when they have that, they feel safe, but they feel helpless, completely powerless, that they have to get that through approval. So they are endlessly seeking approval to meet their addiction of oxytocin. And it creates a fear spike when it goes away. That it's an overwhelming fear spike. So when your avoidant partner pulls back, or someone abandons you, or you connect to somebody who is not ethical, which is very common because you're going to do that, seeking that level of approval, you're going to get it's ripped away, and you will do anything to get it back. This is why many anxiously attached women, they'll do anything for approval, and they start to hate themselves because of the things they've done for approval.
Wow. Okay, so in that anxious space, then what do anxiously attached people do in order to help themselves?
First step, I always say, number one is learning that attachment exists, so that maybe you are not the scum of the earth that you think you are. I guarantee you're not, but just there needs to be the tiniest amount of doubt that maybe, okay? When you do that, number one, then the first thing you actually need to do is start learning to soothe your own nervous system. I usually teach this to my coaching clients through somatic body experiences. You have to have physical pieces back in the hindbrain that really begins fixing the nervous system and regulating it. I know you teach this extensively in your work as well. And this is the absolute number one thing you have to do, because that balances out the emotional right brain, soothes that agitation, restores logical functioning. Suddenly you can make long-term decisions again. Suddenly you can be calm and make logical assessments. And then you can begin, the next step is living to your principles and your goals. So when you have to make a decision, instead of doing what reduces friction and makes you feel safe in the moment by pleasing somebody, you say, you know what? And you say it out loud, I can't do X because that would violate this goal or this principle. So here's what I'm gonna need to tell you is this goal and principle. Is there a way we can take care of things here between us without violating these. And a good, secure person who cares about you will say, absolutely, yes, let's do that, because they love that you're consistent and you're now a trustworthy person. How shall we say, a malicious person, let's just say it, a malicious person who wants to exploit you will be mad that you suddenly have boundaries and then push through and demand that you violate those to please them. And this is how you filter those people out of your life. This is a great filter for toxic people. So if you start living to your goals and your principles, suddenly you don't have to be afraid of applying boundaries anymore. You're not arbitrary, you're not giving ultimatums. You are telling people, I need to live to these two things. This will make me a good person, and you should want this from me. So let's follow these boundaries and work together.
I love that. I think that it's hearing the steps, that sounds really good. And for the people I know in the anxious space, they're probably a little panic stricken right now.
Oh yeah.
So what one thing could we give them in short order?
Oh, absolutely.
Where they could just either breathing, so somatics is when we feel our emotions in our body and we move things, like move those emotions through our body, frequently through movement or breath. So what example would you give for our anxious audience today that they might be able to use?
Physical techniques. The first one I teach to my coaching clients when they come in is a version of progressive muscle relaxation, but it's introducing intense, prolonged physical discomfort in your body so that you push into what's called the endurance phase, where your body wants to stop and your brain says we're not stopping, and then you continue in. Runners get this, lifters get this, there's bad versions that are harmful to you, but anything that pushes your body to that limit and you continue with breath work and muscle work, that's what's going to do it. It's really going to start draining the emotions. And then after that, you can start drawing out 3 core principles that you're going to live to. I talk about this in my book, Slaying Your Fear. In that book, it talks you through guiding yourself into what are my 3 core principles I will always live to. From now on, I will make every decision this way. If you can pick 3 core principles and just start making your decisions based on those, everything will get better.
Give us an example of 3 core principles.
Mine are honesty. I have to always tell the truth and the fullness of truth. I can't let someone believe a lie. Integrity. If I give my word, I have to keep it. So I have to keep my responsibilities no matter what. And number 3 is compassion. I will always and must always do what is truly right for people who are suffering. I cannot ever break those 3 things or I cannot sleep at night.
I love this. I love this, and when we have those list of rules for ourselves that we must stand by, it takes the emotion out of us.
Yes.
So then it's just putting a checklist to the side. And both the anxious and the avoidant could probably use those checklists for their parameters.
Absolutely. And to also see if other people are doing this, because this is what makes someone trustworthy.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That's wonderful. So you said you have a book that you've written. You have a book out?
I do. So there's a book on Amazon right now called Slaying Your Fear. It's only 100 pages. It's designed to be a fast, instant primer for people who want to jump in right now and learn how to resolve anxious attachment style. There's pieces in there very good for avoidantly attached people too, but it's primarily geared toward anxious attachment and that nervous approval seeking. You can get in and learn a lot right now very, very quickly about the 5 key steps of fixing anxious attachment style fairly fast.
And those, we won't have time for those 5 key. We'll let you pick up the book, Adam Lane Smith's book, so that you can learn about those 5 key, you said key principles, key steps. Key steps. So that'll be a good read. I think that'll be really important for our audience. So when it comes to anxious and avoidant, I know we've talked about anxious, avoidant, and then there's a third, disorganized attachment style also.
Absolutely.
So we don't have time today to talk about disorganized.
Next week, let's get into what it looks like when you put them together.
I think that sounds perfect. So putting all the anxious and the avoidant together, and it's not
pretty.
Yeah, it's not. Okay. So that will be next week. Any last words for our anxious audience at this moment?
Absolutely. Understand that it's not your fault. You were not born this way. You were raised this way. Your environment shaped you to be approval seeking to increase your chances of survival in a harsh environment where people were not caring for you. But what that did was program you to believe that you are unlovable. This is the lie that you have believed. The best way to change this, honestly, is by building self-respect. Not self-love. That's not where you need to go first, but self-respect. And how do you respect somebody? They follow their principles and they pursue a real goal, and they pursue them every single day. When you do this, you will be a person worthy of your own respect, and that will reshape how you feel every single day.
Thank you so much, Adam, for being with us again this week. Join us next week when Adam Lane Smith, the attachment specialist, is back with us again. Will you please let everyone know how they can find you and reach you?
Best place is adamlanesmith.com. I have all of my resources for fixing attachment on there. I'm also on YouTube as Adam Lane Smith. I'm on every social media platform. Check me out and I will help.
Thank you so much. So we'll be back after these messages, and stay tuned for our next guest.
If you turned 65 recently like me, it's important you find a Medicare Advantage plan that gives you the coverage you're looking for. But finding one can be difficult. The best thing I did, and I suggest you do the same, is call a licensed insurance agent and let them walk you through your Medicare Advantage plan options. There are so many benefits you have access to, so make the call now and let the representatives explain everything to you. Our licensed insurance agents can offer you a variety of Medicare Advantage plans. Plus, the call is free, the information is free, and there's no obligation to enroll. We're here to make it easy for you to select a Medicare Advantage plan that may work for your needs. Finding a Medicare Advantage plan can be easy if you do what I did. Make a quick call right now to learn more. Thank you. Call 800-749-7781. That's 800-749-7781. Call now.
How would you like to go on a 5-star vacation for just $99? We're talking about the quality of a Westgate resort for $99. Not for one night, but for 3 fantastic nights at one of their luxurious destinations across the United States. And you'll even get a free $100 Visa gift card just for making a reservation. We've got some of the choicest destinations that you'll love in the United States that you can choose from for just $99 for a 3-night stay. Take your family, take a special loved one, but get away. Go on vacation with Westgate Resorts. Call now to make a reservation for just $99, and you get a free $100 Visa gift card. Call Westgate right now and book your vacation. Here's the number.
Call 877-930-3491. That's 877-930-3491. Again, 877-930-3491.
Welcome back to the New Health, and back with us again today is Dr. Heather Gessling, Direct Primary Care Physician in Missouri. Thank you so much for coming back with us today, Dr. Gessling.
Oh, thank you. Glad to be here.
So today we would love to discuss the topic of patient autonomy. So first, I would love if you would define what patient autonomy is.
I define patient autonomy as the ability for a patient to make all of their own medical decisions without fear of retribution or without this misunderstanding that they're beholden to somebody else or that they have to obey an authority. They are their own authority.
That's a wonderful definition. I love that definition. And advocating for ourselves, being able to make decisions for ourselves. And we do know that when patients do that, when they advocate for themselves and when they have their own buy-in for their decision making, that their outcomes are better. Is that correct?
I absolutely know that has to be true. I haven't seen a specific statistic or study, but there is no way that that's not true. It's super important for patients to feel like they are in control of their own body. They're their own primary care provider. They are the one that is ultimately responsible for their own health and decision making in healthcare.
So do you find as their primary care physician that you have a partnership with your patients?
Oh my gosh, that is exactly right. Yeah. And even before I was doing direct primary care, that's how I practiced, is I wanted to give the patient all the information that I had in my mind. And, that may include even financial information about the cost of certain tests or, informed consent, about pros and cons, about test or treatment, and be able to just discuss all of that information and then have the patient be a part of that decision-making process. I think we should say gone are the days where you walk in and a physician tells you what needs to be done or what they recommend, and you feel scared of not following that recommendation either for treatment or diagnostic testing. You need to know all of the information. There has been such a lack of informed consent in mainstream medicine, whether or not it's from prescribing medications or injectables or vaccines, or whether or not it's from recommending certain diagnostic tests and the use of contrast. All of these things need to be discussed. We can't blindly follow a physician's recommendation.
I think we've fallen into a space with the insurance-based model where there's so little time spent with patients that it's really hard to get buy-in, but it's so necessary to get a patient's buy-in to agree with what's going on with their own body and their own health.
Yeah, you are right. I mean, there is limited time, incredible pressure to get a patient buy-in. And so there's persuasion and maybe some sort of bias or propaganda speech, that, oh, it's all fine. This isn't going to cause any problems. This is well researched. All of these terms that get used for patient buy-in, but patients need to do their own research.
So and when patients do, when they have their buy-in, then they're in this space where we're aware that you can have better outcome. Well, let's talk a little bit about the placebo effect, even when it comes to autonomy. I know people may be aware of placebo effect, if you'd like to describe that a little bit with us.
Yeah, so there is this well-researched idea, and there is evidence to show that if a physician says, I'm going to give you this medication and it's going to produce this effect, whether it's an antidepressant or even something for pain, then when the patient takes that, whether or not it's the actual medicine or not, they receive that effect. So that just shows the power of the mind to be able to help with symptoms in your body, whether it's pain or inflammation or mood. The power of the mind is incredibly strong, and this is one of the reasons why we can argue against the use of a lot of pharmaceuticals, because it's not the actual medicine itself that may have the most dramatic effect, but it's your mind. And there's a book called The Biology of Belief, where it shows that you can have such an impact on how your body, the epigenetics of your body can be turned off or on just by what you're thinking. It has a powerful effect.
So I'm so glad. I love that book, The Biology of Belief by Dr. Bruce Lipton. One thing that I think it's important to talk about when we're talking about patient autonomy, when people don't feel like they can advocate for themselves and they can't make the choices for themselves, it's not just about placebo effect, but there's the nocebo effect, which is the opposite of that.
Which is one of the reasons why patients should have such strong support in being able to say no, because if they have negative feelings in taking a certain medication, they're gonna do poorly with that medication. They're probably gonna be more likely to suffer the list of side effects, like truly feel it, or not get benefit from that medication. If a patient is told by a physician, you have to take this medication, whether it's for cholesterol or whatever, and the patient feels stress thinking about taking that medication, it's gonna cause them harm. We don't want patients to feel like they have no choice, that they just have to follow the doctor's order. There should be discussion, there should be alternatives, there should be recommendations that the patient feels comfortable with.
I believe even stepwise before pharmaceuticals, there are other things we can do. You have the time to speak with your patients about what those things can be. And then some of those medications, you read the laundry list of side effects with them, and your mind may have you have some of those side effects just because you've read that list.
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly right. There is such a powerful effect of the brain on how your body presents certain symptoms, or the effect on the mood, or the effect on pain in the joints, or the effect on inflammation, or the effect on blood sugar. It can all have direct correlation to what their thoughts are.
The power of the mind. It's so incredible.
Yeah.
So let's talk with our audience about how we can help them exhibit some of this patient autonomy. I mean, we know that patients are in a fearful space. Tell us what the limitations, why aren't patients willing to express autonomy, first of all?
I love this question. You know, I think in society we've been brought up over the last several decades of sort of this idea of authority, and you got to do what you're told, be a good person, don't rock the boat, clean your plate, do what you're told. And this can happen in any aspect of society. It can happen within religion, it can happen in the home, it can happen in the medical industrial complex, so the mainstream medical system, where you're labeled as non-compliant or difficult if you don't do what the physician tells you, or if you question things, or if you want more information, or if you just make a decision that you don't want to do that medication, or you don't want to have that test run. It's like the physician can literally treat you different. I've seen it. I saw it in my training. I've seen it in my career, where patients get labeled as difficult just because they don't feel comfortable doing something that the physician has recommended.
So when we are in that spot, because I think a lot of people, I have a mindset, I'm a medical provider, you're a physician, it's always a good idea to have someone in medicine in your family, right? So you have that advocate who can go with you and play the bad guy, so you can still be the good guy, but not everybody has that. So how can we help people with the words that will be helpful for them to not be that problem patient, the person who is seen as a difficult patient?
I recommend staying positive if you're in a situation where you don't feel comfortable with what's being recommended. I recommend to use some diplomatic terms, such as, let me think about that, I'll get back to you, or I'm not saying no, but let me just do a little bit of my own research, or I would like to give it some time. Maybe we can readdress that at the next visit. Terms like that.
How about the idea of, are there any alternatives? Is there something I can try first? I'm not comfortable with a medication right now. I'm not sure I'll even be able to take that medication regularly. I'm scared of this. I need a little time.
Those are even better. I highly suggest, if a patient can push back against starting a pharmaceutical, then by all means, you should say, I'm not ready to start that medication just yet. Are there other ideas or alternatives before we do that?
Okay, I think that's great. So it's the feeling comfortable, or trying to feel comfortable understanding you're not going to be defined as a problem patient. Having the words that are maybe more feeling words in there of, I'm a little concerned about this, let me think about that. I know we can get a little scared with providers if we don't know how to advocate for ourselves, but buying yourself a little time till the next visit, asking for possibly an alternative that you can use instead of the pharmaceutical or the test or whatever might be next. Even asking the pros and cons maybe about doing a test versus not doing a test.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, nobody is in charge of you but you. You do not have to submit to anybody. You just have to do what's right for yourself.
That's perfect. I love the topic of patient autonomy. I'm sure we've given some ideas for people in our audience that can then take this information with them into their next appointment, hopefully empower them a little bit more for their own health and well-being. Thank you so much for joining us again, Dr. Gessling. Could you please let everyone know a little bit about what you're doing right now and how they can reach you?
Yeah, I would love to. I'm doing a detox project with my good friend, Christian Elliott, and we're going to be doing our next free 2-day seminar in September. You can sign up at www.healingunited.today. You got to put that whole web address in there. Also, if you're in the state of Missouri and you're interested in seeing what my clinic has to offer you, my direct primary care clinic, you can go to my website at gesslingfamilywellness.com. I'm on some social media sites. You can get me on Twitter or X at @hgessling. I'm also on Facebook, Heather Gessling. I'm also on Instagram, but I don't know what that handle is. I think it's Heather Gessling MD.
Thank you so much. So yes, if you're in Missouri, definitely you can see that Dr. Gessling is your patient advocate partner for you. So please reach out to her. I'm sure you will really enjoy working with her. I wish I was in Missouri. I'm in Michigan. So I would love to be there with you. So thank you so much for joining us once again. And I'm happy that you're going to be back with us again next week. And for those of you watching, please stay tuned after these messages for our next guest.
If you're on supplemental oxygen, heavy and awkward tanks can be a burden. Now you can leave home and leave the tanks behind with Inogen, portable oxygen therapy that moves with you.
With my Inogen, now I'm able to do the things that I've always loved. I just press the button here, and there's my oxygen.
Inogen systems are so small and light, you're free to leave the house without the hassles of an oxygen tank.
I could play golf again. I could go grocery shopping. I'm free again.
With the Inogen, I can handle my own oxygen. I can carry my own oxygen. I go anywhere with this. Look how small it is.
And right now, you can try an Inogen portable oxygen system for 30 days risk-free. Call us right now. If you qualify, we'll send you an Inogen system to use for 30 days risk-free. Your insurance may even cover your new Inogen system.
If you're on oxygen, you need to be using an Inogen.
Call 800-367-1753. That's 800-367-1753.
Do you have a car sitting around you want to get rid of? Well, here's a great idea. Donate your car now to help local veterans in your area. Yes, just make one fast call to the Veteran Car Donation Program. Within a few days, we'll come and remove your car for free. You can donate any car in any condition. We'll use our vast network to sell it. The proceeds raised go to help local veterans and their families. And you get a tax deduction. And all you need to do is make this free call. Clean your yard up, get rid of an old car, and help the vets. We make it easy. Make this free call now. Book your fast and easy pickup. Call the Veteran Car Donation Program now.
Welcome back to The New Health, and back with us today is Dr. Cheng Guan from the Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine. Thank you so much for coming back again with us.
Thanks, I'm having a ball. Love to come back here.
This is so much fun. I love all of your passion for the work that you do.
Thank you so much.
I would love to talk a bit about neurodegenerative diseases. First, if you could tell us what those are.
Yeah, absolutely. Neuro means nerves. It could be the brain, the spinal cord, or other nerves as well. Degenerative is not generating, means that things are going downhill, right? So the brain could be shrinking, the nerves could be damaged, et cetera, et cetera. So neurodegenerative is a classification of a lot of different disease states. Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, Lou Gehrig's disease, multiple sclerosis. And I also classify a lot of mental health disorders into neurodegenerative diseases as well, such as ADD, ADHD, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, that's very interesting that the ADD, ADHD are in that space. Can you tell us a little bit about why you put them together?
Sure. If we look at the brain, we know that the brain shrinks after a certain amount of aging. Yeah? Mm-hmm. So my sister's an interventional radiology resident at NYU. So we kind of talk about the brain is that when you look at the brain, the radiologist will say age-related changes. So we kind of expect the brain to age and shrink a little bit, right? Mm-hmm. But the American Academy of Pediatrics shockingly have released bulletins and guidelines saying that children at 5 years old are starting to have their brains shrunk. If they have more than 2 hours of screen time, especially or more than 3 hours of screen time per day, okay? Wow. Which leads to ADD, ADHD, et cetera, et cetera. So we can't really see mental health as separate from brain health. So I would say most mental health diagnoses could be a component of a neurodegenerative disease. But a lot of times we don't look hard enough.
Okay, so first and foremost, for those parents at home, when they're thinking, my young child's brain is shrinking, is there something we can do?
Oh my gosh, there's actually so much you can do. So one of my favorite books is written by a really good friend of mine, Dr. Daniel Amen, How to Raise Mentally Strong Kids. Like, it's really actionable wisdom in that book. But limiting screen time is really important. But parents, listen, I have a 2-year-old, 8-year-old, and 10-year-old. They have iPads. I get it. You're like limiting screen time and then your eyes glaze over. What happens is most people will limit the screen time, but they don't replace that with anything else. You have to replace screen time with something that bonds you, that connects you. Eating at a dinner table, playing hide and seek. That's what I did last night with my 2-year-old, right? Battleship. My family loves Battleship. My wife hates Monopoly because she never wins, but I love Monopoly. Uno, right? Going out for a swim, et cetera, et cetera. And so the screen time is almost like the easy button to keep a child occupied. So it's sort of like the don't bother me while I grind, do work, et cetera, et cetera. Now, I'm in a household where both me and my wife are physicians. My wife is an OBGYN. So we're busy, right? And so, but we have to make time to connect. Interestingly enough, when you do that, the ADD, the ADHD, those symptoms start improving and start going away. But guess what? So does dementia. As we find out that what is the #1 risk factor for the elderly losing their memory quicker is loneliness and isolation. And we've seen over and over again that when we get the family surrounding the elderly as a unit and raise this person up, guess what? They're more interactive, they're less depressed, and so we see it in all humans, right? So it's not just kids, and it's not just the elderly. And this is the most powerful thing about neurodegenerative disease, is that this is a community healing structure that we have to set in place. And that's actually what we do at Texas Center for Lifestyle Medicine.
I love this, and I'm gonna, my mom, this makes me think of my mom. She's 76, sorry mom, I'm outing you on TV. But she is sharp as a tack, social groups. If we want to spend time with her, we need to get on her schedule.
Beautiful.
That's just who she is, and she is absolutely healthy and well and mobile and vibrant and beautiful. So this is really resonating with me. So this is sounding like, yeah, as you said, probably some of what you do at your work, with your work.
Yeah, absolutely. And another big thing people don't understand about neurodegenerative diseases is that we have to look at it from the outside in approach. Well, what does that mean, outside in, right? So people think, oh, your brain must be shrinking and there must be some supplements or diet and things that you can take, right? Well, no, that's although that's important, it's not as important as what is your posture doing? Are you slunched over, right? Do you have a lot of chronic pain? What happens is that your posture determines your whole health, your blood flow to your organs, detoxification through the liver, through the brain zone detox system called the lymphatic system, right? It determines how much cerebral spinal fluid bathes the spinal cord as well as the brain, which also supplies the brain with nutrients and detoxification at the same time. It also controls hormones, right? And so what we're seeing is that the posture is everything, okay? So when someone comes in and their posture is not great, and then all of a sudden they're handing me papers with a neurologist and labs and stuff like that, I'm like, hold on a second, I want you to stand up for a second. I'm going to look at you walk from the door to here. If you're a patient listening to me, you're probably laughing because I do this for every patient. Let me look at your posture first, right? So outside in means how does someone physically look? If they're limping, if their hips are tilted, like this is where like physical therapy, chiropractic, my mom's an acupuncturist, acupuncture can come in, because this is actually required for the body to balance that Zen balance, if you will. And when the posture improves, just like when you get a massage or a chiropractic adjustment, so afterwards you're like, oh, I feel really good, right? And you're releasing these neurochemicals from the brain, and these neurochemicals can actually stimulate regeneration. The most important neurochemical is BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, which is like miracle grow for the brain. I heard it called once, right? And these get released whenever there's movement, there's exercise, there's alignment, right? And so, but that's true whether you're a kid with ADHD or an adult with mild cognitive impairment or early Alzheimer's disease. It's the same, right? Or if you have multiple sclerosis, and et cetera, et cetera. And so, like, these are the things that are kind of tying everything together when it comes to all neurodegenerative diseases.
So I'm going to just briefly touch on BDNF. I have so brain-derived neurotrophic factor.
Yeah.
From my understanding, and please correct me, that 20 minutes of movement a day can help with your BDNF. Is that correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's dramatic too.
Tell us a little bit about how is that so?
Well, movement can literally just be walking, or there's a lot of people who are disabled who have wheelchairs at home, like start working with the wheelchairs, start working with occupational therapists and physical therapists, right? And so what's happening is that as you're physically moving, your connective tissue called the fascia is starting to kind of relax a little bit. And the fascia's job is to protect you, kind of like wrap you in a blanket, right? The problem is the fascia has 250 million nerve endings in there, and when it wraps you too tight, it will hurt, right? And so this is why when you're laying around the couch for such a long time, you get up like, oh my God, my back hurts, right? Well, that's only because you've been laying around the couch for so long.
Yeah.
It may not have anything to do with your actual back in terms of the bony structures, the discs, or anything like that, right? And so when you get up and actually move, you're relieving that. What's happening is that you're breathing. Your lungs can deploy, your diaphragm can deploy down. Above the diaphragm is your lungs. You're actually drawing air to the bottom part of your lungs. You're oxygenating a whole lot better as well. And we're aerobic creatures, which means that we need oxygen to actually survive and thrive. And that's not, our brain's not any different. Our nerves aren't any different. It's the same structures that are there. And the other thing about that is that you're actually moving and contracting your muscles. So it induces your body to go into metabolism. You're using up sugars, you're using up nutrients that are there, right? And so because of that, your body is trained to be in safety mode and sort of relaxation mode. So a lot of people have this thing called the post-workout high, where after you work out, you feel really good. Like, that's what's actually happening. There's different neurochemicals, there's oxytocin, there's dopamine, and all sorts of different things that are kind of presented out there. You're like, okay, I feel pretty good, right? But that's what's going on when we talk about 20 minutes of movement.
So you mentioned that now we're talking about movement, we're talking about breathing. You've mentioned, making sure we're breathing because we're shallow breathers a lot of the time, so we don't remember how to have deep breath. All of this seems so fitting for exactly the lifestyle idea, for lifestyle medicine.
Yes. And we have to honor that first, because if you think you can just move and take supplements, you can't out-supplement like inactivity. That's not a thing. It's not possible. Or the other huge part of neurodegenerative diseases is sleep apnea. Sleep apnea is rampant right now. In fact, it's getting worse generation after generations. Our cell formation is changing quite a bit. So if you're diagnosed with dementia, neurodegenerative diseases, ADHD, and either you haven't had a sleep study or you have had a sleep study and you have sleep apnea and you're not being treated, well, it doesn't matter what supplement you take. Exercise, it may help a little bit. It doesn't really matter what diet you have. Like your apnea means lack of air, apnea, not breathing. Your apneas are creating the most root element of neurodegeneration as well. That's got to be treated. It's without a doubt the most important thing that's got to be treated. And it's the number one missed thing in all doctors when they see patients with neurodegenerative disorders. And guess what? Sleep apnea happens in thin people, it happens in women, and it happens in my 3 daughters who are 2, 8, and 10, okay? And so we have to really reclassify what's really going on when your brain's degenerating. It's really a lack of sleep. Part of it may be sleep apnea. If you're having grinding, you have TMJ issues, chances are you probably have sleep apnea. You don't even have to snore to have sleep apnea. In fact, most people who have sleep apnea don't snore. I don't know if you know that. And so this is something that's really, really commonly missed when it comes to neurodegenerative diseases.
So you've heard it right here, right from Dr. Wan. We need to be making sure if you're concerned about the possibility for sleep apnea, please get checked. So thank you so much again for being with us.
Thank you.
So will you please let everyone know what you're working on right now and how people can find you?
Yeah, so interestingly enough, we're talking about sleep and neurodegenerative disorders. We're working on a couple conferences that are educating healthcare professionals to do that. So if you're a healthcare professional, go to Physician Transformation Institute, which is my website for healthcare professionals. If you're a patient, go to texascenterforlifestylemedicine.org. That's where you can find us as a patient. And we will collaborate with pretty much everyone in the greater Houston area and all over Texas as well. And then find me on LinkedIn, and find me on Instagram as well. Just search my name, Changron MD.
Thank you so much for being with us again.
Thank you.
So join us again next week when Dr. Ron will be back. Thank you so much for joining us for the New Health, and we'll see you next week.
Cool.